16 souls for you to keep, but drowning water won't take me. Swallow stone and still I rise. I have no anchor but time, but the waves refuse my plea. Drowning water won't take me. Drowning water, fill my lungs. It will never be enough. Morning's coming on the time. How we live is how we die. How we live is how we die. Burning shore and empty sky, choppy sea and sleepless nights, death's reflection in the deep, drowning water, comfort me. Swallow stone and greet the dead. Give them what I wish I had. Cast no shadow in the deep. Drowning water, comfort me. Drowning water, fill my lungs. Will it ever be enough? Morning's coming on that time. How we live is how we die.
What the hell was that? Those hunters. Never seen anyone like them.
That madness in their eyes. It's something wicked.
It's not something. It is him. We vow to do his will. When the world's skull splits open, we will drink from it.
Will you fall into madness and join the ranks of those marked by the sculptor's whisper? Will you vow to restore the natural order of death and fight for the sanctity of eternal rest? Or will you refuse to serve any higher power and fight fire with fire, seeking the opportunity in the ever-present chaos? Tide of corruption cometh. Make your pledge. Embrace your fate.
Hey everyone, welcome hunters and welcome back to a developer livestream where we are going to be talking about update 1.14 as well as the new Tide of Corruption event. And with me I have Dennis here. Hey Dennis, how are you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, and welcome everyone from chat as well. It is gonna be quite an exciting stream. We have a lot to talk about, but first I wanted to mention that we did put out a roadmap video, which the mods hopefully can link in the chat for you, where David talked about what is coming to Hunt in the near future as well as early 2024. So make sure to check that out because there's a lot of information in there. And with that being said, Dennis, let's just dive into update 1.14 first, and let's see what are the key highlights from the update.
Let's go it.
Yeah, so first off, we are going to be talking about a completely new addition, which is the custom ammo pickup boxes that are available in missions from 1.14 on. So what can you tell us about this, Dennis?
Yeah, so this is basically a new type of box that we're planting around the world. You can find those a little bit into the towers and arsenals and the supply points. If you find them, that allow you to kind of swap your currently selected weapons ammunition to that type you find in there. So they're obviously collected boxes, right? There's multiple different types in them. So if you have, for example, Dum Dum as a box, then you can have long, medium, whatever the current weapon has. As long as it can accept that type of ammunition, you will be able to now equip that mid-mission. How this works is basically that you have an interaction prompt, you use that, it will lower the weapon, it will unload the weapon for you, and then the weapon comes up empty with a new extra ammunition refilled, and then you can just load it up back in. So it takes a bit of time, but you can therefore kind of swap things around quite a bit, and that makes it very interesting.
And as you mentioned, it is for every type of ammo, but let's just quickly peek at the available types. So we have all the bullet or rifle variations for custom ammo. You guys can read it. We also have example images on the top that you can see for each type, but just one by one. So one for shotguns, one for rifle, one for pistols, and one for special ammo like bows or crossbows. Then we obviously have the shell custom ammo types, and as I mentioned, the special ones.
Yeah, what makes this really interesting is that you can kind of now for the first time, since you will have them in Soul Survivor, get custom ammo types in Soul Survivor, as you can find them there as well. But it gives you like another means to kind of either save on the ammunition or adopt quickly inside the mission. For example, swap out some ammunition type. Maybe you didn't bring them, you're hoping to find some. So it just gives you another way of exploring the world, finding these things, kind of like enhance your weapons a little bit if you so choose to.
So as you mentioned, you can indeed find them in Soul Survival now, but other places you may be able to find these boxes are supply points and the towers, and a small chance to find them in the arsenals.
Yeah, like the little separate places like at Wolf's Head, for example. Exactly.
Exactly. And let's just take a small look at a short video on how it works with one example.
As you can see, you need to have a weapon with a compatible ammunition, and then it allows it for you. The interesting part is actually that the interaction takes longer the more ammunition you still have in your weapon, right? So if the weapon is kind of like already unloaded, it gets very quickly. If you have a fully like kitted out weapon, it can take a little bit longer, but overall it is a rather short interaction.
Yeah, I just take a look at it once more.
And there might be a teaser in that video.
There's always a teaser in our videos. So that is it for the custom ammo boxes. So I forgot to mention in the beginning, but the update and the event will come on the 4th of October. So it's just 2 sleeps away. And the servers will be taken offline at 7 a.m. UTC. So that's when the deployment of the update will start. And obviously we will notify you as it goes live. So it is very, very soon now. And next up, we have something else that we have to talk about, and you guys already seen a snippet of it in our social media as well as the roadmap video I mentioned. We have a new weapon inspection feature. So what do we have to know about this, Dennis?
So the new feature is basically giving you a chance to look at the weapons while you're playing the game a bit more in detail. So your current selected weapon, if you press the button for it, you kind of see them up close, you inspect left, right, depending on the weapon. There's some really cool animations that the guys have put together. And also some of the legendary variants might even have their own to kind of take into account whatever like small geometry changes there are compared to the regular version, etc. So really cool stuff, great to explore. We release this in batches. So the initial release will include the pistols, including dual wield and any sort of like precision versions, etc., all the variants. And then we have all of the melee weapons and melee tools that are part of this, as well as the walled items, so sledgehammer, etc. And then we also threw in the bows and the crossbows as kind of special category. So that's like the first batch, and then in the next updates after that, you'll see more and more of the weapons come part of the system. If you just press the button, the weapon doesn't support it, it would just pop a little message like inspect is not available, so you can just continuously like check them out. But for now, handguns, melee, walled items, bows and crossbows.
And one important thing to mention is that these inspect animations can always be interrupted to not interfere with gameplay. So you can always interrupt it if the fight is breaking out in the middle of your checking out your new pistols, for example.
Yeah, that was super important for us, like to not lock you guys in place. So like you can even use that to kind of experiment. Like what I really enjoy is just like playing around with like a knife in your hand and then actually doing like a melee attack, etc. It's very interesting. It's very fun. You've seen it in other games. It's very exciting to do that.
It's awesome, and the throwing knife especially is really cool. But with that being said, why don't we just take a look at a few examples of these in action?
Love the knives.
It's really cool, yeah.
Yeah, also your teammates will be able to see you doing an inspect, right? So in third person, at least in the start, like for example, you would be able to kind of see each other doing inspects and kind of do something with the weapons in your hand.
Yeah, I already seen a question regarding that. So good that you mentioned. So these are not client side. Everyone can see them in third person as well. So you can see each other doing the animations. And that is 2 big additions, but we have a lot of new Arsenal additions coming with the event as usual, first available during the progression of the event and then unlocking in the regular game. So Dennis, this will be your favorite section, so let's just talk about about what's new.
Let's get into the new guns. All right, so let's start with the first one. So we do have a baseball bat in the game now. It's something that people have been asking for quite a lot, like adding a blunt melee weapon. So this is like a small slot melee weapon. It does blunt melee damage, obviously, so it's kind of emulator safe. Gets like the emulator seal of approval. Has very low stamina consumption, which is a typical thing we do for all of the blunt weapons we have in the game. However, it is still very much a powerful weapon. So if you choose a machete, if you choose a saber, if you shoot a baseball bat, it's up to you. Both of them, or all 3 of them technically, will be able to kill a player with a heavy attack if you time it well. And so the baseball bat is also strong and powerful, and comes down to what's your choice of melee tool to go along with your weapons. Or melee weapon in this case, small slot.
Yeah, and we do have a video of this as well, so let's just take a look at it in action, smashing some grunts. I think it's really cool, yeah.
Can never go wrong with that.
Yes.
I mean, baseball bat bonking is very satisfying for sure.
The sound is really satisfying as well. And just to mention with the weapon inspect as well, shout out to the animation team doing great work on these amazing animations and also for the brand new weapons too. But let's move on to a new tool on the tool side of things. So we are adding a Derringer penny shot, Dennis. What is that?
Yeah, so So this is like a new tool, and I think this is actually going to be one which will have quite a bit of an impact in people's loadout choices, specifically maybe competing with like setting up traps and other things, right? So the Derringer penny shot is a second type of Derringer. We have the 4-barrel one with the very small tiny bullets, but don't underestimate that one. And now we have a Derringer penny shot. It just has the 2 shots of penny shot shotgun shells, basically. But it does benefit from frontiersman, so you can get like another reload if you have the trait equipped, just like with a regular Derringer. It's mostly good against AI, but obviously it's also a last resort weapon. If that hunter with the bomblets is charging you, you might pull out that little guy and then actually turn things around. We chose the penny shot not only because it's actually pretty cool, but also because it helps us with the balancing side. So this is nothing you can use for wall penetration, right? Like, so you can't just use that one next to a layer and just like pop people from the inside. It is also obviously like a very wide cone. Like this thing scatters. Like you really want to use this up close as a last resort. It's not going to be as effective as, let's say, even a penny shot from a shorter zone off. This is something you want to be very careful about, but it can be very powerful. And against bosses specifically, or like some meatheads, etc. Penny shot, as you know, is very hard hitting against AI, so you can use that to kind of like maybe finish that boss rather quickly, get the last health away.
That sounds great. And could you actually take a Derringer and a penny shot at the same time?
Yes, you can. You can equip both of those if you wanted. They are separate tools, and so you can run around with 2 Derringers if you like. So I guess there's maybe a couple new naked run challenges coming up for people.
A lot of new fun loadouts for sure. And on the variant side of things, we have some new weapon variants, starting off with the Bornheim silencer.
Yes, so this is like our second handgun with a silencer. As you might know, with a revolver, it's always a bit hard putting silencers on, and the Gant was one of those weapons with a sealed gas on a cylinder that allows for some sort of a silenced effect to happen. We're now putting that also on the Bornheim. And again, compact ammo weapon, so there's a natural balance to that, obviously. Yes, silenced weapons usually lose their damage quite quickly in our game. What you notice as well maybe is that there's a /15, which means 15 extra ammunition. This is actually a change we applied to all Bornheims in this update, so all of them get a little bit of extra ammunition, which you see a bit of a renaissance when it comes to picking the Bornheim as a backup. And obviously the silencer just follows suit here as well.
It is a lot of fun to play with, I can take that. Dual Bornheim silencers, a lot of fun.
It's great. I mean, it uses all the other like custom ammunition that you have from the Bornheim series, right? So you can apply them in there. Will be interesting to see for people to kind of choose between that and the Nagant silencer for different applications. Definitely a very powerful one in the right hands, but obviously over distance you might need to like quadruple tap this person before they go down, just because damage draws off over distance.
And with this update, we also see 2 variants for the fan favorite uppercut. So what is the uppercut precision about?
So yeah, the uppercut precision is basically in the name, right? Like it is the more precise version of the uppercut, following the same logic as we have for other precision type weapons. It's basically you take a handgun, you put a stock on it, you turn it into a medium slot, and therefore benefit from an accuracy boost because of stabilization. So sway is different, and otherwise it is the weapon that you know, and it does the things an uppercut does. So overall, ammunition is the same. It just is a more precise version, but it costs you a medium slot. And obviously there's differences in terms of like the animations for reloading, etc., just from the stance and holding it pressed against the shoulder.
That sounds great. And as I mentioned, it's not the only new uppercut variant. We also have a Deadeye variant of the uppercut precision.
Yes, we thought, like, why stop here? So we also added like a little Deadeye scope for it, like another variant. Again, has all the downsides of putting a scope on a weapon when it comes to situational awareness and just being able to run around, but you have a bit more range with it, can maybe pop off those shots a bit more precise. So I think this is going to be a very good backup weapon for many players, like for example, bomb lance users or shotgunners, if they have Quartermaster, or even elevates some of the medium-only loadouts to be rather competitive.
Awesome, can't wait to see it in action. So another variant we've added with this update and event is the Springfield 1866 Bayonet variant.
Yeah, so this is also something which has been kind of like requested by the community quite a lot. it's a very straightforward change. We just put a bayonet on the 1866. So that means you can now actually get a bayonet version for very, very cheap money as part of this loadout. And everything else obviously is the weapon as you know it, with the extra ammunition, etc.
That's great. And with some balancing changes that we will be talking about in a bit, this is going to be a great weapon to choose. So we also have another favorite one, the Berthier Marksman, coming with this update.
Yeah, so we're adding like a marksman version of the Berthier as well. The interesting part about this one is that you will be able to obviously equip 2 different ammo types for it. So it gives you, similar to like the Sparks sniper or the Martini Henry marksman, like a chance to kind of swap ammunition for it. So you can maybe bring one bunch of, let's say, Spitz ammunition, another of incendiary or regular, and have a very flexible sniper at hand that way.
It's gonna be great. And last but not least, the Vetterli is getting a brand new variant with a self-loading mechanism. So let's talk about the Vetterli Cyclone.
Yeah, so this is going to be a very interesting one for us to talk about, because it's the first semi-automatic rifle we're adding to the game, but obviously we're adding it in a hunt-ish way to the game, which means it will have its own drawbacks, its own balancing means that makes it very interesting. So this is a 3+1 capacity weapon, so rather low when it comes to sustaining fire. However, as a semi-automatic, it gives you a chance to kind of like shoot cycle through between shots really, really fast and be able to kind of do follow-up shots. The interesting part here will be to actually like prevent you from completely fully recharging the weapon, but actually leaving 1 round in so you can top it up again. But it means you just have 3 rounds semi-automatic, and then you really want to think about that one. Or if you empty it, you have to kind of like go through the entire charging mechanism, which takes a little bit longer. I will see that in a video in a second.
Yeah, so why don't we take a look at it, because this is very fun to look at.
As you can see here, like this thing kicks like a mule as well. Then has a very long charging mechanism where you can then top it up +1.
Yeah, let's just quickly look at it once more. I really like how the little mechanism looks on the side as well.
Yeah, like this, like the entire gas is being channeled back to operate as a blowback, basically the lever action for you.
It's really cool, and I can't wait to see it in action. And that is for our new variants, but we do have some arsenal changes coming up with the update, especially on the custom ammo side. So what kind of new custom ammo types are we adding?
So one, we already teased about in the video in the beginning. So the Scottfield gets actually 2 different ammunition types right now to make it a little bit more competitive as a sidearm. One is the dome ammunition, the other one is high velocity for it. So will be interesting to see the Scottfields kind of show up a little bit more, similar to what we have seen with the Pax Love in the past. Now we have the Scottfield Love. We're also adding high velocity ammunition for the Springfield 66. Good thing about that is that it kind of like works very nicely together with the marksman version. So you have a very high frequency, or like high muzzle velocity sniper version of it, which means you can actually hit your shots quite accurately without leading too much. And then we also have added for the Winfield Centennial Dum-Dum ammunition as well, which is very, very powerful. So similar to you've seen that effect, for example, on the drilling, we'll see a strong bleed effect here. And then we also added for the Nagant series, which means both the basic Nagant as well as the officer and all the variants. Dum-Dum ammunition is another one, which is going to be very interesting to see how the Nagant, specifically the pistol versions, will hold up as sidearms compared to like the other pistols out there. So overall, mixing up the meta a little bit when it comes to the handguns and ammunition available for them. It will be interesting to see what loadouts we'll see emerge from that.
And talking about mixing up things, we know the Stalker Beetles that we've added a few updates ago, and now a brand new variant of them is arriving, which is the Fire Beetle.
Yeah, Fire Beetle is awesome. So we're adding one more beetle. And what a beetle does, as the name implies, it kind of bursts in fire. This is a very small contained fire, so you want to be very precise with it. However, this thing is actually quite powerful. Therefore, there's also some balancing that we talk about a little bit later when it comes to the beetle, how this one fits in. Like, oh, we get back to this one. So the Fire Beetle will appear as part of the unlock progression, but you will also be able to then find it in the world from normal places, similar to when we introduced the Choke Beetle, and it means you get like a random beetle from those locations.
Awesome, and let's take a look how the Red Hot does in action against the Hive in our little video.
see it come right in. So as you can see, like the distance to the player has been so like far already that it didn't ignite the player. So just like to kind of show you guys, like it is a fireball, it is fire, it can do nasty things with barrels, AI against players. It's awesome to kind of prepare for a push. It can set oil spills on fire. So it's a very aggressive type of beetle, but it also isn't like a hellfire firebomb radius type of large explosion. So you need to be kind of precise with it, which means you can also shoot it down as it comes for you without necessarily getting affected.
And just to mention it, that you will be able to find it in the usual Stalker Beetle positions, so you will randomly get one.
Yeah, there's also like going to be a very interesting competition now between the fire beetle setting hunters on fire, while the choke beetle extinguishes them. So obviously, as it is fire, like with an area effect, it can do all the things that fire can do, which means it can also set fire like hunters on fire.
So a lot of use cases to this one. And I love the counterplay between the different variants now. But let's talk about another huge topic on the balancing side of things. So this is something we've heard a lot of feedback about during the past months or year. So we are indeed making some changes to the flash bombs. So what is happening, Dennis?
So yeah, the flash bomb has seen quite a bit of a controversy around it in recent months or last half a year or so. And one of the biggest points was just that it can be such a quick game changer when you're in the middle of a fight. You just toss one around the corner or whatever, and then you might have a very strong advantage, which makes it very hard to counter. So we went back to the drawing board a little bit about that one, and how we're trying to deal with this at the moment is like we want to have this take longer to prepare. So it's going to be a new priming animation and sounds. It takes a little bit longer, similar to like ignition of other consumables. That will be clearer to understand. It takes longer, so you can't just like instantly toss it and then get an effect. We need to prepare for it. So it's much better for pushing into a layer than it is to just toss it in the middle of combat, which is an intended change. We want it to be more used for breaching, less for just completely switching over a fight. And you also reduce the flash intensity. Now, what that means is that, like, for people who are a bit more sensitive when it comes to just like getting the complete whiteout effect on screen, which can be really strong if you're, for example, playing like in a darkened room, that it's more of a grayish color as well. So it's a bit more a quality of life change for players to be less, actually really blinded by it. Yeah. And then we also added like a counter to it with Bulwark. That if you equip with Bulwark trait, it basically decreases the flash duration. So you can no longer get a full flash. It still can flash you, but it's going to be much shorter. However, we also make sure that the attacker does not receive a false hit marker, which is usually an indicator for a full flash, right? And gets a hit marker, runs in expecting that everything is fine. He can now take care of the guy, but the guy has not been flashed. So this is not the case. You will not receive the hit marker as to not run into your doom by having a Romero sitting around the corner waiting for you to do exactly that. So overall, the item will be a little bit less used aggressively on the fly, but more used for intentional breaching actions. And we hope that the fights will become a bit more stable that way. And the last thing we added to that one was that we can only purchase it between missions. So we intentionally took it out of like boxes, rewards, etc. in the mission. So it's a conscious decision to bring it rather than finding them too frequently, like a world, for example.
Yeah, the rework definitely sounds exciting, but why don't we just take a look at it in action? So you will see the new priming animation as well as the new flash effect.
Oh, clearly, the thrower didn't have Bulwark.
Yes, true. But let's just take a look once more so everyone can catch the new animation in the beginning and the new sound.
So it's more akin now with, for example, like a concertina bomb and other items, which take a bit more commitment to throw them so that they are much harder to kind of use spontaneously in a fight. And that's also exactly what we want to do. We want to make it more precise. You'll also be able to hear that sound, that priming sound, as it's basically being shaken and then ready to be thrown and stirred up. You will hear that a little bit clearer over distance. So there's also a chance for you to kind of react there being one thrown down your way in the next second or two.
Exactly. We also have... Oh, sorry.
Just one thing, just because I just saw it come up as a question, like, so whether you can hold it. Yes, you can still hold it just fine. It will just emit that sound continuously. But after the preparation is done, you can also hold it. So people will understand that there is potentially a flash being primed around the corner, and then you can make your choice whether you still want to push in or not. But once they pull it, they commit it, which means they cannot defuse it anymore. They have to throw it just like a concertina bomb. Once it's primed, it's a fire and forget. Like you're committed.
Yeah. So the next topic is the resupply changes. So we made some tweaks on resupplying the Derringers as well as the flare pistols. So what changed, Dennis?
So yeah, we're basically taking the burden away from the toolboxes to resupply those, which means you can bring them with much better conscience without necessarily feeling the moment you fire a few shots off, next thing you use a toolbox, you'll just basically get ammunition for those rather than something maybe more meaningful. So that means all of the items will now be resupplied from ammo boxes, respectively regular ammo box for the Derringer, and then the special ammo boxes respectively for the Derringer penny shot because it's special ammo, and for the flare pistol as well. So that means you will be able to kind of run them a little bit alongside, and hopefully you will be able to just like bring them along as a complementary weapon that is easier to replenish and doesn't compete with your tool and consumable refills.
Yeah, I see a lot of happy people for this change because I think it makes it much more viable to bring it and not get annoyed by resupplying when you didn't want. So
yeah,
this is awesome. So we do have some other bigger balancing changes as well. Make sure to check out the patch notes when the update releases because all the details on all the updates will be in there, but we just wanted to highlight some bigger one. And let's talk about the health changes first to the regeneration shot.
Yes, so regeneration shot is already something people have been using quite a bit, but we would like to see it even be used a little bit more. And for that, we are increasing the one point that people mostly complained about with regeneration shot is that the moment you put them in, you're regenerating your health at lower speed. That is no longer the case. So the regeneration of health is now at a regular speed as you would normally do it. Which gives you basically a chance to kind of use this as normal regeneration for the intended period, right? Like the 5 to 10 minutes that it usually lasts. Now, interesting part is for people to try out, do they actually still need a first aid kit if they run one of those? Because technically you get a lot of healing, sure. Maybe it's a little bit faster, maybe not. Be interesting to see how people will incorporate it into their loadouts, and then we'll see if further balancing changes needed from that. But overall, we're quite happy with that one because it just brings this item in as an alternative to go alongside, obviously, the Vitality shot, but as an alternative, potentially even to first aid kits, which maybe opens up a couple of tool slot options. So up to you guys to experiment. But we did increase the price for both versions by 20 respectively, just to accommodate for the fact that there's a bit more value to them now.
And it's not just the regeneration shot seeing some changes, but we did some adjustments to stamina consumption of melee weapons to make them a bit more viable. So let's see what we changed.
So in general, all of the melee attachments on weapons, be that a bayonet, like for example for the new Springfield 66 we talked about earlier, as well as riposte, talons, traumas, claws, strikers, ripostes, and all what they all named, you'll be able to perform one more additional melee attack before your stamina runs out. So there is now an actual difference between a combat axe and a wood axe you can find in the world. That a combat axe gives you this one more strike, which makes it maybe a bit more viable as a choice, but also in general, like bayonets, etc., gives you a chance to kind of do more with them, and hopefully that will be something where people say, hey, it's more worthwhile considering putting a melee attachment in, because sometimes obviously they affect your sway, or you lose your blunt melee attack and might need to bring dusters, etc. So as part of that toolset choice, you at least have one more reason to opt for one of those because they become a bit more viable.
Awesome change. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of changes coming on the balancing side, but we have the first permanent burn trait, which you may be familiar with from the previous event, but Dennis will be here to explain it to you. But the very first one is Shadow.
Yes. So Shadow is coming back. However, it comes back a little bit outside of the spectrum of our pacts and event traits. So it's going to be the first burn trait that you can find normally in the world, as part, for example, from drops from meatheads, or if you're just lucky finding them spread around here and there. They have like similar chances to spawn, like for example, of the rare ones, so like Doctor, etc. So you will find them as part in there. If it happens, you get the advantage of what Shadow was giving you in last events, which is AI will be completely oblivious to you. You will just be able to walk between them. They will react to audio. They can't pinpoint it, but gives you a very, very strong advantage kind of moving around between AI, even leaving them for maybe possible pursuers behind that they have to deal with and chop through rather than you having to worry about them. And interesting is like this is going to be the first. There will be more burn traits in the future, and as a general rule change, and that will be interesting when we talk, for example, about the event traits later on, is that burn traits can now be stacked 3 times. In the case of Shadow, that means the moment you are downed once, you will lose the ability of Shadow, like the trait burns itself out. So you can have multiple ones of those to prevent that instantly you lose the effect of him by the first time you get downed in this particular example.
It's gonna be very interesting to see how it plays out, and also maybe more burn traits we're gonna talk about in a second as well for the event. And we do have some extra notes on some balancing changes. As I mentioned, there's gonna be a big list, to make sure to check out the update notes on Steam on the release day. But let's highlight some more here about balancing.
Yeah, so we're doing some changes to Conduit. This will be mostly along the lines of like, at the moment, there's a strong competition between team members, like who's going to take the clue. We're doing some changes to Conduit that will allow everybody that has the trait equipped to benefit if a clue has been interacted with. So there is no longer competition. However, we've also reduced the time that Conduit gives you the bonus quite a little bit as a bonus. Refer to the patch notes then for all the details of that one, but it's more of a team-focused change. We've also done some ammo and price gameplay adjustments. I'm not going to go into detail of those. You will have to refer to the full list in the patch notes for that one. And then going back to the Stalker Beetle tuning, I quickly talked about that when we talked about the Fire Beetle a couple minutes ago. We decided to actually increase the speed of the beetles a little bit, so that it's a bit easier to kind of like go and pursue players, move around, be a bit more agile. The interesting part is that this affects primarily the Stalker Beetle as well as the Choke Beetle. It does not affect the Fire Beetle, which intentionally is a bit more of like a bumblebee, like a bit of a slower, more louder type of version because of its more potential destruction that it can wreak like havoc with the fire. Also, we've given a bit more of a generous like mercy time for being out of range. So I think it's like another 10 seconds you can move around rather than the current 10 seconds before you have to return into radius. Otherwise, you will lose control of the beetle. Then for Roger, it's mostly balancing changes around melee attacks against Roger, and specifically from the melee tool side. Again, then you need to refer to the patch notes for all the details.
Other than that, we did increase the hunter slots to now have a total of 75 available to players. So
get like 25 more hunters for you to fill up. I'll certainly will take advantage of that one and see that you can max them out and pack equipment and just have one ready for every opportunity.
And you know, it's another little challenge to players to have that 75 max level hunters. So good luck.
I use them primarily really just like to say, okay, I have a few snipers ready, I have a few here, like what specific legendary skins with teamwork, etc. So I really enjoy just having that roster really to kind of pick and choose from. So like, okay, today I'm going to burn through these 5 level 50 hunters I'm sitting on because I really want to just like have fun with those very powerful builds with all the traits that are equipped.
Exactly. And we also have one special mention that Razer Chroma integration is coming with the next update. So please, again, refer to the patch notes to see the full details. But all of you that are rocking Razer Chroma hardware, your lights will synchronize to hunt from the next update on. So that is going to be very fun to see.
Yeah, it's a nice little gimmick. It's very fun.
Yep. And I think we are done with the update part of things, which are obviously permanent and will stay in the game even after the event. But let's talk about our brand new upcoming event, Tide of Corruption. Again, these two will happen at the exact same time. So update 1.14 and Tide of Corruption will start together in 2 days. And Dennis, would you like to read a little snippet of intro to the...
I can certainly try. So in the wake of Tide of Shadows, the Bayou is in disarray. The rise of Butcher's Cleaver and his demented pact pose great threat to all who fear the Sculptor, unleashing the Dark Inferno. The Death Pact is forged to seek answers, while the Infernal come together once more to fight fire with fire.
Wow, thank you for that. Was very good reading, first of all, and it sounds very exciting. Obviously, we will have a lot of lore to uncover during the event, so make sure to check that out. But let's talk about how it works compared to previous event.
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, the event rules are very similar to what you guys are already used to from the Tide of Shadows event. We've tinkered around with the numbers a little bit. So like overall, you get a little bit more event points from certain actions. We also increase the threshold until you get your first pledge mark a little bit. But in general, like the system is the same. The ratios are rather the same. So it's just minor adjustments that we've done here and there just for the sake of quality.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that based on feedback, we have increased the event points earned during missions, but pledge marks, as you can see it on the top, still cost 30. I mean, the threshold is 30 event points during a mission to get a pledge mark. But other than that, the rules are very similar, as Dennis mentioned as well. And just to touch on the event progression side as well, it is also gonna be very similar. There's gonna be a battle pass which you can progress through and unlock all the new weapons, variants, custom ammo, all the lore snippets, and a bunch of rewards on top of that.
Yeah, following our established structure here with a free track as well as the battle pass track then.
Exactly. And we wanted to highlight some of the legendary hunters, which are really, really cool, coming with this update. So let's just take a quick look at them. So first of all, we have the Burnt Marshal, who is coming with the Battle Pass path.
I wonder what pact he might be referring to.
It's very hard to figure out, isn't it? But we'll talk about the effects in just 1 second as well. But yeah, it's pretty obvious. And we did mention that the Infernal Pact returned. And we do have the Butcher's Cleaver, who is the free progression hunter reward. And you may have seen or also heard him in our trailers previously.
Yeah, this one is really cool. It's like he's kind of like the leader of the Demented Pact, and they really do worship the different bosses that we have, the boss targets in the world. So guess whose star this one is, right?
Yeah, it's he may resemble one of the bosses from the game, but that's what I'm happy with. Yeah, we also have two brand new Bloodbond hunters, the Scarecrow, which is perfect for the Halloween time of the year, in my opinion, and then we have the Waldman.
Yeah, Scarecrow looks amazing. I really like this skin a lot, specifically with the little sickle he has there. So yeah, definitely gonna play this a lot. And the Waldman is just amazing as well. Like imagine this one with a nice legendary drilling. Definitely someone who can hunt certain things.
Exactly, super badass. And we do have an upcoming DLC, which is also connected to the event. You will be able to wishlist it from this week on in the coming days, and it will come out during the event. And it will feature two hunters. So it's going to be Scourge Morrigan and Scourge Midian in the same DLC pack. So amazing.
Yeah. Really, really cool. You can also kind of like get an impression what pact they might be friends of and who their inspiration is.
Yeah, it may also remind you of a certain boss target in the game if you take a closer look. But that is for the legendary hunters. And let's talk about the pacts you mentioned. So with this event, we have one returning pact, the Infernal, and we have two brand new pacts. The Death Pact to start with. Let's talk about Death.
Let's talk about Death.
Exactly. So what are the new traits, Dennis?
So we have basically again like a regular passive trait, and we have a burn trait for each of the pacts. And there's also a conditional effect for an existing trait. So technically each pact does 3 things on the trait front for a total of 9. So let's start with the first one. For Death Pact, we have Witness, costs you 1 pledge mark. And while in Darkside, dead hunters and monsters are visible, and health restoration is marginally increased when close. Also highlighted in Beetle View. So the interesting part here is this is basically, if you've known Instinct from the last event, this is another of those revealing mechanics, but it plays down a little bit differently from the practical side. And what it allows you is to kind of see if players have died in a certain range, if monsters have died. You can use that to kind of track teams down and kind of follow their body count, and you even have a chance while in Darkside, if you're close to any of those death locations, to kind of restore a little bit of health. It's very slow, but it still is giving you like a ghoul-like type of effect where you can have a chance to kind of replenish a little bit. So it has a passive healing ability as well as giving you information. It's very powerful actually in practice once you've played with it a little bit.
And I know that this is a specific trait that a lot of people have requested to see something similar. So I'm really happy to see it in the form of a pact. And what is the second trait then?
So the second one is Relentless, and you know this one already. So this is a returning trait, which means that your hunter won't lose a health chunk when downed. It's a burn trait. And now the interesting part, as I mentioned before, it can be stacked 3 times, which means you can actually go to the supply points, and you can, if you have the pledge marks for it, invest into up to 3 instances of this one, which means even in the same fight, you might have multiple situations where you might get downed, get picked up again, and each of those will burn one of those trait instances. So you kind of increase, in quotes, the shield a little bit better and stack them.
That's a very exciting new twist on it, I think, on the bird trains in general. But we do have the third one as well, which is the conditional one.
Yeah, so like for the conditional, we actually have something which I think is some people might even perceive as being as strong as the other 2 pact traits, which is if you have Vulture for a Death Pact hunter, looting a dead hunter will restore 1 health chunk in exchange for 1 pledge mark. So there is a cost to it as well in terms of pledge marks. However, what it means is that if you go to a hunter that you found, and you can loot them, you will get at least a chunk back. You will not get an instant full replenishment, so it's not a restoration effect, like for example a boss banish does, but it does give you the chunk back, which you can then top up by normal healing mechanics, for example, using Witness. So there's a bit of synergy around that as well, and it makes it very interesting for Death Pact to kind of like be able to top up their chunks, even if they've like spent all the Relentless ones, they can at least come back and have a chance to stay in the fight.
It's very interesting and very, very in theme with the death theme. So
like someone just said in chat, I definitely want to quote that one. Rats are eating good.
Very true, very true. So yeah, it's gonna be very fun to see it play out as well, and I'm very curious to see what pact players choose. But we haven't talked about the other 2, and this is the other brand new pact we mentioned, the Demented Pact. So Dennis did talk a bit about the background that they are worshipping our boss targets, but let's see what traits they actually can play with.
Yeah, so like they have the same structure again. They have a regular trait. In this case, it's called Acolyte. This one means that acquiring a random trait and some hunt dollars when you or your team pick up a clue. So this one is one of those progression traits, like similar to, for example, we had with the Gunrunner in a previous event. It gives you a chance to kind of like progress things a little bit faster, like have a monetization aspect potentially in some of these points. Like here in this case, it gives you traits. So until you have the hunter in a certain state, you can either respec those traits or you just have an advantage directly inside the round, and gives you a chance to kind of like take a new hunter and kind of progress them a little bit faster by giving you some interesting upgrade points or even cool traits if you're lucky to draw the right ones. So very interesting for that one, and you also get a bit of hunt dollars alongside, which obviously you need to extract, right, not to benefit from them. But for those who might be on the lower side of their of what's in their wallets, there's an interesting one just from a progression perspective. Not very competitive, but something very good for progression. I
mean, traits can always come in handy in fights, so I think it's very useful. And then let's talk about the burn trait, Remedy.
Yes, so we then have a remedy coming into this one, and this is basically a return as well. So using Dark Side, interact with a trait to trigger a restoration effect similar to banishing for your team's hunters. So interesting part here again, it is a burn trait, so you can kind of stack it up to 3 times, but also because you can now purchase multiple instances of traits at the supply points, there's a higher chance for you to, if you go to a supply point, there will be a trait there, because I guess only a few players will have up to 3 instances always equipped. And that means you can more reliably even use Remedy this time around, because you can go to the next supply point and find the trait there with a higher chance.
Awesome. And obviously, as we mentioned, we also have the same format for a conditional trait, which is Ghoul this time around.
Yeah, so this is going to be interesting because obviously the Demented Pact, as we talked about, like kind of plays into the whole theme of our boss targets. So damaging a boss target or wild target restores a small amount of health. So that basically means if you have Ghoul on a hunter that is pledged to the Demented Pact, you will be able to kind of like benefit a little bit during boss fights. Maybe just kind of if you were unlucky to lose 50 from a pounce attack from the spider, you will be able to kind of like restore over that as well. So again, makes it a bit easier to fight the bosses. You can turn them, get rid of them a little bit faster, and gives it a secondary effect.
It is really interesting, and it goes very well with the theme of the maniacs that are following the bosses. And the third pact, which is, we mentioned, a returning pact, the Infernal Pact. You may be familiar with it from a few events ago. But let's see what they offer this time around in terms of pledge.
Yeah, so Infernal is coming back, and Infernal used to be one of the pacts that was kind of dominated a lot in a previous event where we introduced them because of like the dynamics around dev cheat and all the other things we had around there. We kind of went back a bit to the drawing board and kind of said, okay, how could we make Infernal more interesting? What can we add to them? And the first trait that we kind of came up with as a result of that is Blazeborn. And that is a bit of a mix between what Infernal was doing in the past, but also there's a breeze of Mariner in it as well. So the idea is that health restoration is greatly increased while in flames, and you can catch on fire. So it's a combination of the two traits we had in the past, just as a single one. So very powerful around fire. You can even throw your own firebomb, quickly heal it if it's a thing, like throw a lantern. Obviously, there is one thing to consider here, which means that you still do a bit of charcoaling. So you have to be careful not to stay too long in fire, so you don't lose a chunk from charcoaling the entire way down. But that happens at a very slow rate, while the health actually restores very, very quickly while inside. That's just something to keep in mind, for there's a bit of a downside to it as well, but otherwise it is a very, very strong healing effect, and fire is going to be a very, very good friend of you if you play Infernal.
Yeah, and we are going to be talking about the new wildcard condition, because obviously fire will be a big part of this event. But for now, let's look at the burn trait for the Infernal Pact. Rampage.
The Rampage is a new trait, and this one is going to be for the aggressive players. So I think I can already see some of the more competitive ones getting a big grin on their face right now. So killing an enemy hunter while at least one health chunk is empty triggers a restoration effect for your hunter. So what that means is that if you play aggressive, if you manage to kill another player and you have Rampage on your hunter, it will mid-combat completely restore your hunter, which means if you are really playing aggressive and you do that kill, even if you got badly wounded, you might be able to now stack up on kind of engage in the second one. So you have to obviously do the kills. If you don't do the kills, you might die. And if you die, you lose your health and all of the usual stuff that happens when you die. However, if you manage to do the kill, it gives you a comeback and it might be able to kind of chain you through a attack through the different team, which is very, very interesting. And again, it can also be equipped 3 times on the hunter. So you might be able to load up a hunter with number of those, so that if you kill 2 or 3 hunters, it can do this 2 or 3 times in a row.
And you can definitely go on a rampage with this, so it's gonna be crazy good. But we also have a conditional trait again for the Infernal Pact, which is Bloodless this time around.
Yes, so bleeding is stopped automatically because your wounds are cauterized, so within a second. So that means basically that bleeding is less of a concern for you. I mean, so if you have bloodless, keep in mind you already are at maximum a very like weak bleeding effect, which you can usually tank for quite a while before it becomes like significant, especially in combat. Now with bloodless, that basically is completely ignored, as your wounds just don't bleed. You're cauterizing them. So the interesting part here is that like you will have one less thing to worry about as you move through stuff. For example, concertina, etc., other things. That makes it very interesting to kind of like be aggressive with this one. So everything in this pact screams aggressive play, but obviously it's not as good when it comes to like mending your wounds after the fight is over. You have to do the killing in the fight in order to benefit from it, and if you do, you don't have very high rewards here.
Yeah, it will be a very tough choice this time around to choose between the pack, because they all have their different advantages, I think. So I cannot wait to play with you all during the event. Yeah.
There's one last thing you can say on the screen. That is quite important as well. You will, as an opposing player, so like someone who has someone with a rampage run up against you, if they kill your friends on your right side, and like consequently get their restoration, you will see that on the hunter that it actually happens if you pay attention. So ideally there is a good readability in there that you will be able to tell while maybe the guy takes a few more shots to go down because he got the restoration. And you know the effects already with the restoration from the bosses, for example, and like the Wellspring in Soul Survivor is quite similar as well to that one. So it's like a lightning, etc. But there will be a clear readability when it happens.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so we talked a lot about the Infernal pack last and about Fire. So a new wildcard condition in the form of the Dark Inferno is returning to the Bayou. It is very similar to the Inferno with some changes at nighttime. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this is going to be like a new wildcard condition. It'll be like set during night. That's the twist this time around. However, it will also have improved visibility through the fires compared to the previous iteration, right? So that gives you just like overall a better chance to kind of like fight in and around the fire. It doesn't have the audio be as dominating as before, but obviously it still kind of impacts you, and you still need to make a choice whether you want to get close to the fires and maybe take some of the shortcuts through the fire versus just staying away from these areas completely. But overall has been tuned. It's like another iteration of that gameplay based on the lessons learned we had from the first one. And yeah, I mean, Blazeborn is going to be very interesting for hunters while they fight on that wildcard condition, obviously.
And yeah, it is a beautiful wildcard condition, I must say. The fire and the night really comes together, and it creates like a very unique scenario. So it is going to be a lot of fun to play around with. And as a last thing regarding the event, let's just take a very, very peek at some of the rewards. We just wanted to highlight some of the legendaries, but not all of them. So make sure to check out the event in 2 days and the battle pass to see all of them. But just let's look at them real quick. So there's some beauties in there.
Obviously, like in our tradition, like for many of the weapons that are coming new into the game, there will be legendary versions of them, and some really interesting versions around that as well.
Yeah, and just another peek at some of the other new ones.
Yeah. On the bottom right, this is actually a weak vitality shot.
Yep. And again, there's a bunch more, but we just wanted to quickly tease you with some of them and highlight them. But please check out the Battle Pass and the event to see the full list of rewards. And with that, we came to the end of the regular stream, and we will have a small Q&A section to answer some of your most pressing questions about update 1.14 and the Tide of Corruption event. So let me get my chat here.
That's great. There was a question about the ammo boxes. So I'm just going to start from the ones posted in here. Whether you have to have the ammo type unlocked. No, you do not. You can just find any of the ammunition, even if you don't have it unlocked, in those custom ammo boxes, and then you can change them to that particular version. Keep in mind, they will be contraband as you leave the mission. However, it gives you a chance to kind of like change things on the fly, like either equip incendiary or high velocity or whatever. And it's also very interesting to maybe adapt the weapon to a specific playstyle if you, for example, loaded that weapon off a dead hunter. There's another question. Maybe let's stay with the ammo boxes then for a second. Whether what happens to the weapons that have 2 ammo types? Will they lose the 2 types or 1? No, this will be basically per category. So if I have a completely unmodified Sparks, for example, I will now, after interacting with a box that has compatible ammo in it, I will have 1 of the 2 ammo charges being replaced with a new type, while the second one remains on the ammunition. So it gives me a chance to kind of control a little bit which of the ammo types I want to have, and doesn't completely override some of them. So ideally, you always have a chance to kind of like do it. Obviously, what you can do is you can swap ammo type, go to another box, and maybe find a different type of ammunition that's compatible and swap both of them out eventually. So it's down to you how you want to play with that.
I see some questions talking about other topics, so please check out our roadmap video that was just posted. Our mods can again link that in the chat for you, hopefully. And in that video, David Fifield, our general manager, went through a bunch of upcoming things, even looking into early 2024. We talked about consoles, the CryEngine integration, the new map. So there's a lot of topics covered in there. So please make sure to check that out, and a lot of topics that you are asking about will be answered there as well.
Yeah, it's a great video. There's a couple of questions about the inspects. So, for example, do inspect animations make noise? Well, they do it just a little bit, but it's like if you were to flip, let's say, an aperture sight on a weapon. Like if you're standing with your teammates in the beginning, yes, you can go on their nerves with that a little bit, just like with the ones we already have, or just swapping weapons, etc. But it's not going to be a big sound that carries a lot. But sure, it does make a bit of sound. It would be weird if it doesn't. Then there's another question whether these animations from the inspect affect hitboxes. They do, however, so in general, arms, for example, do not block as a hitbox when it comes to normal projectiles, right? Like, so if an arm is in front of the chest or the torso, you will always take the hit to the chest or the torso for projectiles. There's one caveat here, and that is everything you throw, like sticking weapons like an arrow or throwing knives, throwing axes, etc., which do damage to exactly the location they hit. So yes, they might affect those latter set of weapons a little bit, but in practice, what we have found is that it doesn't make any difference. It's not relevant. It's nothing that players will use consciously, because the way the animations work, there's going to be enough free space anyway. So it's gambling whether it would actually help. You would be much better off using the time to shoot at the player.
I've seen some questions regarding the event progression and how it's going to be. As you mentioned, based on community feedback, we did increase the amounts of points you can earn within a mission, but the challenges system from the previous event does return, so you will be able to complete challenges and earn event points by completing those challenges.
Yep. There are questions about the melee stamina changes, whether it includes bomb plants. I honestly can't say for sure if it does. I would at the moment assume, but in any case, bomb plants had like a pretty good amount of hits you could do with them already. So I don't think it will matter too much in practice there, even if it wouldn't. But I am under the impression it's a global change for all of the melee attachments and melee that you can actually do one more attack.
Yeah. Sorry, just to Dennis misspoke a tiny bit about the shot. So it is a weak stamina shot, not a vitality shot from the reverse.
Oh, it's a stamina.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks reddish. But yeah, okay. My bad. Absolutely.
No, just
Weak
to correct it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, makes perfect sense. We don't want to give any wrong information here. Weak stamina. Use it for melee, which ties in very nicely to the melee topic we just talked about.
Exactly. Just to transition back into it, so you can see it in the bottom right corner. So that is a weak stamina shot indeed.
Thanks for the correction.
No worries. I also didn't notice, so thanks for Violet for pointing it out.
There are a couple more questions regarding the Bornheim. So the stream slide says 1/15. Obviously, it should be 5/15. So basically, you have 5 additional rounds of extra ammunition. The weapon still remains a magazine-fired weapon, not a single shot. It doesn't become a single-shot weapon. So yes, it's just a mistake on the slide. 5/15 is the capacity for the Bornheim silencer, regular Bornheim and Bornheim match. And obviously, you have a bit more magazine capacity for the Bornheim extended.
So someone asked, how does the shadow trait burn? And as Dennis already mentioned it, first of all, you will be able to find shadow trait in-game, regardless of the packs, just in the update in general, and you can stack it up to 3 times, and you lose it if you die. At least you lose 1 stack of it if you die.
Exactly. Like the interesting part around that is just like that. The stacking really gives you that safety cushion. So even if you happen to be downed again, if you had found it 2 times already, like you're safe. And that just in general for burn traits adds a lot of value to them. There was one question regarding Blazeborn. Actually, 2 questions I think. So one is, can you be burned while downed? No, you basically are charcoaled, right? Like as we've seen, for example, in Thunder Shower, that if you are in fire in Thunder Shower, you won't catch fire, but you still have a bit of charcoaling. So while there is a source of fire around you, the charcoaling will just slowly burn away through your health chunks at a low speed. However, you're not actually catching fire, and the moment that source goes away, for example, a lantern kind of like burns out after 20 seconds or so, then you would need to apply a new source to continue charcoaling.
And talking about fire, I still see some questions about the fire beetle. So can it set barrels on fire, and can it set downed players on fire? Dennis?
So the beetle can set down players on fire. Yes,
and barrels as well.
And barrels as well. Like so it is fire. Like it does what fire does in the game. It can ignite oil spills. It can burn AI, unless they're obviously immune to it. And it also applies fire to an area, and therefore, if there's a hunter lying in that area, they will start burning. Keep in mind, though, it's not going to be a lasting fire. So specifically to what we just talked about with Blazeborn, right? So you would just get a bit of charcoaling because then the source of fire is gone.
Is there any big questions you would like to answer, Dennis, right now?
I need to look through if there's any more in the list.
Meanwhile, Dennis is looking. I can say that if you have any questions in general, make sure to write it on our Discord or in social media. We always try to get back to you under our post. So if you are not understanding something about the event, just comment under our trailer, ask your question, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible.
Yep. So there's a couple of questions. So one that we've seen a couple of times is, what about DevCheat? So DevCheat is not making a return this update. DevCheat is taking a break, which we think is kind of useful and interesting because where we can play some of the other mechanics. Whether DevCheat returns or in what way is to be revealed in a future dev stream. But right now, this event will not feature DevCheat. And the last question maybe, so someone asked again regarding Rampage for the Infernal Pact, the burn rate, whether does also this one restores lost chunks. Yeah, it's like a full restoration. So if you manage to kill a hunter, it fills up your health, but also restores all of your health chunks. So this is just the same as if, for example, Remedy was triggered, or Relentless prevents you from losing a health chunk, right? Like it is one of those health chunk specific mechanics. Each of the packs has one of those in one variant or another, and this one allows like to kind of get a full restoration if you manage to do a kill, but you need to do that kill.
Awesome. And as a last point, just for questions, I see some questions about prices and stuff like that. So for those, please make sure to check out the update notes that go live with the update. And all those changes will be detailed in there where you can just read it and learn about every price and every little change like that. There's also a bunch of stuff we haven't mentioned, including bug fixes and other changes. So again, the patch notes are a perfect place to learn about those. And do you have anything else, Dennis, or?
No, I'm super excited. Like I think there's lots of stuff to go through. People will have lots of things to try out in 2 days from now when Tide of Corruption starts. So yeah, looking forward to see it all come in, like to the live servers and see how people react to it, what cool builds they'll create, how they use the traits, and just in general, like how much fun they will be having. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a very exciting time for Hunt, and the Halloween season is the perfect time to play Hunt. So make sure to play the event. Dennis, thank you so much for joining today and walking us through all the awesome updates.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And the chat, thank you for being so nice. And see you all in the Bayou on October 4th at... Again, the update starts at 7 a.m. UTC, so a few hours after that when the servers are online. It's going to be a lot of fun. See you all there, and I wish you all a good night. Bye-bye.
See you in the Bayou.